They say skinwalkers steal voices the way hunters steal pelts. If you ever hear a child crying in the desert after midnight, turn around, because the child is not the one calling you. The desert carries many sounds, but only one of them knows your name before you speak it. I did not believe that once. I do now. I was patrolling the far edge of county territory that night, driving along an old service road where the pavement had given up years ago. The sky was clear in that unsettling way the desert can be. No clouds anywhere. No moon either, just starlight resting on empty land. My cruiser hummed over the gravel, and for a long stretch, the only sound was the engine and the faint whisper of brush scraping along the roadside. The silence broke around 2 in the morning. At first it was faint, almost too distant to notice. A soft sound carried by the dry wind. I heard it without thinking about it. The way you hear a dog bark a mile away or a coyote cry across a ridge. Except this sound was different. It was a child crying. I slowed the cruiser. My headlights spilled across cracked earth and scattered sagebrush. Nothing moved. The sound drifted again, thin and trembling. A whimper, a soft call. Then a small voice sang a single word. Help. I turned off the engine and grabbed my handheld recorder from the console. I used that device for documenting wrecks, statements, strange noises on patrol. Never expected to use it for something like this. I stepped out of the cruiser carefully, letting my boots sink into the dust. The wind brushed past me, warm at first, then strangely cold. I raised the recorder. This is Sheriff. Time is 2:14 in the morning. Investigating possible missing child call near Ridge Echo Road. The crying moved again, farther than it should have in that short amount of time. The sound drifted from a ravine carved into the land like an old wound. I walked toward it, sweeping my flashlight along rock and brush. Hello? I called out. You hurt? Can you hear me? The voice answered, louder this time, but wrong somehow. Help me. The pitch was too steady, too controlled, like someone imitating a child and missing the emotion beneath the words. A chill crept up my arms. I kept recording anyway, letting the device document every sound. I edged closer to the ravine. The air grew still. No insects, no wind, nothing. The flashlight beam trembled slightly in my hand. I leaned over the edge, searching for movement. The crying stopped. Then a new sound rose from the dark below. Laughter. Soft, breathless, fragile, not playful, not human. I stepped back instantly. The recorder picked up my breath hitching, the gravel crunching under my boots. The laughter faded, replaced by a whispering voice that stretched the syllables like it was learning how to speak. Where are you? I did not answer. I forced myself back toward the cruiser. Flashlight still pointed at the ravine as if something might climb out. I reached the vehicle, got inside, locked the doors without thinking, and sat there breathing hard. The desert around me was still, too still. I lifted the recorder, pressed stop, then pressed play. The crying played first, thin, distant, sharper on the recording than it had been in the air. My voice followed, steady enough, calling out into the dark. Then the laughter came through the speaker, but on the recording it was louder, closer, wrong. My breath caught. I pressed the recorder closer to my ear as the last part played. My voice asking if anyone was down there. Then silence. Then something else. A whisper. Low, slow, soft enough to feel more than hear. Sheriff. My own name. Spoken in a voice that did not belong to any child. Spoken in a tone that felt like it knew me. I lowered the recorder immediately. My hands shook. I played it again, trying to convince myself I had misheard. But the whisper was still there, faint but unmistakable. Sheriff. The worst part was not hearing it. The worst part was knowing it had not spoken those words out loud. Only the recorder heard it. Only the device captured something standing near me in the dark that I never saw. I sat there in the cruiser, desert stretching silent in all directions, listening to something whisper my name from the safety of a recording. When I finally lifted my eyes toward the ravine, I saw nothing. No movement, no shadow, only the wind stirring the sagebrush as if nothing had been there at all. But the recording was proof. Something had been waiting. Something had listened. Something had called me by name. And I had no idea how it learned it. That was the night I realized the desert speaks in more than wind. And some voices are not for human ears. The next morning should have calmed me. Sunlight usually has a way of burning off the fears that crawl out during the night, but the desert does not forgive that easily. Daylight did nothing to loosen the knot in my chest or erase the whisper from the recording. I kept hearing it in my head as I drove toward the canyon trails again. Sheriff. A single word spoken like someone testing the shape of my name. I told myself I would delete the recording, pretend it never existed, chalk the whole experience up to exhaustion or tricks of acoustics. But I could not bring myself to erase it. Felt like evidence. Proof that something had stood close enough to breathe the word into my device while leaving the air around me silent. I reached the canyon edge around midday. The wind cut across the sand, warm and steady. No sound of children. No laughter. No whispers. The desert looked harmless again. The kind of open land hikers love and tourists photograph without ever feeling the weight beneath it. But I could feel it. Something had woken. I stepped out of the cruiser and stood still for a moment, letting the quiet settle around me. Then I lifted the recorder and turned it on. This is Sheriff. Investigating unusual audio captured on last night's patrol. My voice sounded thin compared to the silence around me. As I walked the trail, I noticed small things at first. Footprints that did not match boots or shoes. Long impressions, not quite human, not quite animal. Claw marks on stone that looked almost like someone scraping bone against rock. Every detail fed a growing sense I was not walking alone. At one point I stopped and crouched near the edge of the canyon wall. A faint groove marked the sandstone. Not deep, not weathered. Recent. Fresh. I raised the recorder to capture the sound of the wind, just in case something else followed it. The device hummed softly as it picked up the surrounding noise, nothing out of place. After a few minutes of searching, I made my way back to the cruiser. The trail had revealed no child, no signs of a person in distress, only shadows and strange markings. But something inside me whispered that the child's voice had never belonged to a child in the first place. I sat in the cruiser, turned the key, but did not drive. Instead, I pressed play on the new recording. The wind came through clearly. My footsteps, my breathing, then something else. A whisper faint as breath through dry leaves. Closer. Behind you. I froze. Those words had not been spoken out loud. I knew that with certainty. My own voice trembled as I rewound and played it again. Behind you. This time, underneath the whisper, I heard something heavier. Breathing. Slow. Rhythmic. Not mine. I dropped the recorder onto the passenger seat and glanced around the empty desert, half expecting a figure to rise from the sagebrush. Nothing moved. No footprints circled the cruiser. The land was bare and open, offering no hiding places. Yet the recording said otherwise. Later that afternoon I headed toward the station. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than they should have. The sunlight dimmed behind a bank of thin clouds, casting long shadows over the road. Halfway back, the radio static changed. Not a malfunction. Something speaking under it. A voice layered with static, almost indecipherable. Come back. It sounded like a plea and a command woven together. I pulled over and stared at the radio in disbelief. My thumb hovered over the switch. When I finally turned the radio off, the silence felt louder. That evening the fear followed me home. I kept replaying the sound from the canyon, trying to understand how something could speak only through the device. Every time I listened, the whisper sounded clearer. Behind you. Near midnight, I gave in to the instinct gnawing at me. I turned the recorder on again. I spoke into it softly. Who are you? No answer in the room. But when I replayed the audio, a new voice emerged. Not a child. Not static. My own voice. Help me. I dropped the recorder onto the table as the floor seemed to tilt beneath me. That was unmistakably my voice. Strained. Desperate. Pleading. A version of me from somewhere else. Somehow else. I knew then that the Skinwalker had moved past mimicry. It was not borrowing voices anymore. It was stitching them together, building them, learning them, studying mine. And wherever it was hiding in the desert night, it had decided to make me part of its game. I am recording this now because there is no one left I trust to tell it to. The years have peeled the memory down to its bone, but it has never loosened its grip on me. The desert still carries the same cold after sunset, the same silence between the winds, and I swear I still see the same long shadows moving along the ridges when the night is thin. This recorder is the last piece of evidence I have not destroyed, and even as I hold it, my hand shakes. I have spent every year since that night wondering whether I should bury it or burn it, but something inside me refuses. Maybe fear, maybe guilt, or maybe because it already owns me, and letting it go would not change a thing. I will start where the worst of it began. Days after the voice mimicked me, the recordings kept coming. Not by choice, not by accident. They appeared on new tapes I never touched, tucked inside drawers I never opened. Each one contained something different. A whisper, a breath, my name spoken softly in the dark. Sometimes the voice sounded like me, sometimes like the child, sometimes like someone I had loved once, long before this desert swallowed the better parts of me. And at night, when exhaustion dragged me towards sleep, I heard soft knocking against my window. Not loud, never violent, just a reminder, a calling. One evening I played a tape I swear I had thrown away. Static filled the room at first, then a calm stillness followed. A voice emerged. My voice, but spoken in a tone I did not recognize, almost hollow. Said very clearly, "They want you to come back." I felt the world shift beneath that sentence. The Skinwalker was not just studying my voice anymore. It was studying my memories, my fears, my weaknesses. I returned to the canyon against every warning the Navajo elders had given me. The sun was sinking, and the sky burned orange as I walked to the same ridge where I first heard the crying child. I brought the recorder with me, though I no longer believed it protected me. Near the canyon wall I found footprints again. Long, twisted, wrong. They circled a patch of sand as if something had walked in place, waiting. The air felt heavy, too still. I pressed the record button. "I am here," I whispered. "What do you want?" No answer filled the canyon. No figure stepped out from behind the rocks. Only the fading sunlight. Only the dry wind brushing against stone. I stood there until the last of the daylight slipped away. But when I replayed the recording, my blood froze. A voice answered me, said my name, slowly, carefully, testing the sound. Then another voice overlapped it. A second version of me, softer, younger, afraid. "Help me," it repeated, over and over. Different tones, different ages, different echoes of a life I had lived. The Skinwalker was not imitating me. It was becoming me. After that night, I burned every tape I could find. I smashed the recorder. I told the station I was retiring early, blaming exhaustion and years of heavy work. They shook my hand. They wished me well. They never asked what I had seen in the desert, and I never offered to tell. But copies of the recordings never stopped appearing. Sometimes inside my mailbox, sometimes beneath my pillow, sometimes left on the hood of my truck, already rewound and waiting. Each one whispered the same sentence in the same cold tone that had ruined my sleep for years. "You are next." Now I feel it every night. Sometimes faint footsteps moving outside my house. Sometimes a shadow crossing the window when the moon is thin. Sometimes the sound of a child crying far across the desert, the same way it did on that first night. I know what it wants now. It wants a voice, a life, a shape, and it has chosen mine. So if anyone ever finds this recording, if anyone ever hears the whisper the way I did, remember this. The first time a Skinwalker speaks your name, it is not a threat. It is a claim. And I should have known that from the moment I played the tape in my cruiser. The moment the whisper slid through the speaker and wrapped itself around my name. The moment I heard myself answering from nowhere. That was the moment I stopped being alone. The moment it marked me. The moment I should have run. I never escaped that voice, and neither will you.